Welcome back, everyone, to Into the Nexus, the podcast all about Heroes of the Storm. I'm Garrett Weinzierl. I'm having trouble with time travel this week, but I'm fairly certain we're starting roughly on time. Maybe not. Who knows? I just know I like playing gnomes. I am joined, as I always should be, by Mr. Kyle Ferguson. Kyle, how are you doing on this fine evening? You are still muted.
Yes, I'm fantastic.
Feeling like old A-Move radio days up in here.
Well, you know, you got to tweet, you got to type, you got to say hello to the chat. Things get busy.
Yeah, you have to.
I'm doing fantastic.
You have to start the show an hour later than usual for the live crowd and scarf down a Chipotle burrito faster than you ever have, and then sit down in front of 4 studio lights and go, I don't know if that was a good idea.
And make a voice.
Yeah. Spoiler alert, that's exactly what happened to me. So I'm going to be riding this mute button like crazy tonight. Just saying.
Peeling back that curtain.
Yeah, you know, our listeners have come to expect nothing less than pure honesty and 100% transparency, Kyle.
That's true. And that's what they're going to get today. And it's going to be brutal and honest. And we'll see what happens.
We shall. But first, we want to inform all of you out there who are supporting us over at patreon.com/ITN that we have scheduled our next patron hangout. If you're unfamiliar with these, we have a Patreon up. That's where folks can go and support the show in a monetary fashion. 50 cents, $1, $5, whatever you feel like giving. That's cool. And patrons get access to the patron hangout, which is where you can call in and join the show and ask questions. Sometimes they're about Heroes of the Storm. Other times they're about what we like on our Chipotle burrito. I had carnitas tonight, but I'm not opposed to chicken or steak. But anyways, we have scheduled the next one. It will be next Friday, May 27th at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Details over at patreon.com/ITN. If you haven't called in before, we use Skype. All the details are there. So, Kyle, you want to give something away.
I do. We're going to give away a candy cane Muradin with the Muradin attached. Thanks to David for sending that over to us. That'll be part of the patrons giveaways. So if you're a patron of this show, check out the post for this episode. Comment that you need a Muradin and some Candy King, and we might hook you up.
Absolutely. Now I want to go play Candyland. Thanks, Kyle.
Do you really, though?
I haven't played it in so long, I honestly don't know how much fun or how much not fun I would have with that game. But
it honestly is really lame. Like, when you're little, it's simple enough that it's satisfied. But nowadays, I think the RNG would drive you insane. It's kind of like Chutes and Ladders. You probably remember that better.
All right. Fair enough.
Or snakes and escalators.
I always just played, like, Sorry with my mom.
And then Sorry was pretty RNG.
And then eventually we graduated to chess, and then we graduated to checkers.
Wait, you went from chess to checkers?
Oh, sorry. We went from checkers to chess.
Okay.
Yeah, here I go, messing up my words again.
Just making sure.
Yeah, you just start, missing mute buttons, saying things backwards. This podcast is off to a wonderful start, especially when we have so much to talk about. And with that in mind, let's dive into it. And try and edit the title of the sound drop instead of actually playing it.
Boys! Ha-ha! Let's liven up this place!
Can Stitches play now?
Yeah, I love it when... Oh, cigar fell in the... Oh, wait!
What a week it is to be a fan, a player of Heroes of the Storm. We have Chromie, the newest hero to join the Nexus. We have a massive patch that came with Chromie. I'm honestly more excited about Arthas personally, but I'm also very excited about Chromie, and that's who we're going to talk about first. So right off the bat, man, how are you feeling about the giant dragon who sadly is really only ever represented in this game as a tiny gnome?
I think she's fun. I think like many of our more strange characters, are maybe not even to go as far as like Murky Release and all those sort of oddities. I'm talking like Morales. Performs a role, but can't do all that other stuff on the side. There's a lot of people in love with Chromie. There's a lot of people sad that she released where she did. I think she's great. I think she's got great power. And like that Morales, we all need to learn to embrace and protect our Chromies and let them do their business.
Agreed. I've been enjoying Chromie as well. As you know, bought her immediately after she was released. I've been enjoying her. I mentioned on Brawl with the Blues yesterday, just dropping a little name. Yeah, guys, we were on Brawl with the Blues, and it was totally awesome. I got to support McIntyre.
That was cool. He had a mad Gazlo.
He did have a Matt Gazlo. He got to play Gazlo twice.
Yeah,
Thanks to ARAM.
In their ARAM, yeah.
Yeah, that was nuts. By the way, if you haven't seen that, I don't... did they do VODs of that? I don't actually know.
It's permanently saved to their Twitch channel.
Okay, so if you go to twitch.tv/BlizzHeroes, you can see Brawl with the Blues from yesterday with Kyle, myself, McIntyre, DJ Tyrant, and of course we're representing there with Trixler, who was, making Chromie shine. Except for that first game, but we forgive you, Trixler.
It was kind of madness. We went in without a tank, and that's where it fails, right? It's a meat problem.
It is a meat problem, and we're not talking about food poisoning at your local Chipotle. Oh, topical to not only the whole world, because they recently did have food poisoning, but my evening. I'm just on a roll tonight, a burrito roll.
Oh, Jesus, man.
Yeah.
You're killing me.
Sorry. Folks don't understand, but there's a mini game that Kyle and I play, and we try and make each other laugh as much as possible. And I've just got your number tonight, Kyle, and apparently it is burrito jokes.
So, okay. Chromie, released at 30% win rate. Heroes League and Quick Match.
According to Hotslogs, which is not a perfect system, disclaimer, yada, yada. It's the best thing we have to work on.
Yes.
So, so she released at a relatively low win rate, according to Hotslogs, and that has a lot of people kind of second-guessing. I'm chalking it up to her being such a unique hero, dude. This is the weirdest mage we have gotten in the game. She is not straightforward. It seems like she should be, because it's like, oh yeah, I'm just supposed to hide and fire skill shots. But it's easy if you know what to expect. If you've played Chromie once and gotten a handle on the range, on her Q and W abilities, the delay on both of them, both Q and W have a significant delay before they fire. You have to lead even more than you have to with a lunar flare off of Tyrande. And that's a lot. You have to compensate for a lot of lag between when you cast your ability and when it actually lands where you are targeting. And with all of that in mind, I feel like if anyone has even tried Chromie slightly, you know how to play around her, which is just be very aware of your surroundings. Be very aware of these spell effects coming towards you and dodge them.
And they, in the preview video of her, they kind of gave away her biggest secrets. When you see the hands go up, get out of the way. Here it comes. It's a very angular shot, and her body language exactly tells you where it's going. And if you see a giant dragon erupt out of her head, don't be standing where you previously were or in the middle of the lane. Awesome. You just missed out on all the damage she was going to put out. Exactly. I feel like we're just so seduced by our previous bursts. Jaina was our big first one. We've had ambushers and things like that, but Kael'thas came out. He was really solid. You have Jaina and Kael'thas on the team together. You're still likely to win. You have Li Ming, Kael'thas, and Jaina on your team. Well, give that a support and a tank, and you'll probably still win. Chromie doesn't work that way. In fact, the closest comparison we can make to help people figure out what to do when building a comp with Chromie is Nova. Thin, powerful skill shot, no movement speed abilities at all, no escape. I mean, you got the time thing, but we'll talk about that in a minute. And your whole role is to make a 5v4. To use your abilities in conjunction with one another in a nice little combo and delete one person, and then you're out of gas for a couple seconds, and you participate however you can after that.
Yeah, I don't disagree with anything that just left your mouth, Kyle. I'm in the same boat. How are you liking Chromie though overall? Are you noticing that you were losing more games than you were winning? I know I personally just had a very difficult time logging a bunch of games with Chromie because of the queue length. It's a new hero. It seems to happen often. Every time a new hero is released.
And I feel like with this big patch that brought so many people back, perhaps, as they're sort of getting those rewards together, most people seem to be a month or so ago just hanging out, waiting for the big reset coming in June 14th. or at least the week of June 14th, they've announced. But those rewards have seduced a lot of people to get back in this game, and what better way to get back in than to buy yourself the new hero and enjoy that. So the skill levels on Chromie are just wild, which means that it does fall into that old problem of release week heroes, in that if you are the better Chromie, you win. If the enemy team has the better Chromie, you lose. And a lot of that does come down to experience in Chromie, maybe not as much mechanical skill.
Yeah. The other thing, and it's very early on, and I am only speaking in terms of, solo queuing by myself as an average Joe player, but it seems like there are definitely maps where she excels over others, and it seems like it's maps where there is an objective to capture, a place where people will be standing and standing still, where you can really abuse your poke and delay indefinitely if things are going your way. Things like handing in gems on Tomb of the Spider Queen, things like getting an altar on your favorite one. Why can't I think of Towers of Doom? Anything of that nature. You can, the delay tactics that Chromie can bring to her team can be a massive boon on these types of maps. But on ones where poke and delay isn't as important, say on Dragonshire, she doesn't seem nearly as effective.
Certainly, Tomb of the Spider Queen. Probably not a good idea. Granted, they are turning in, so maybe you man those turn-ins. Think of Asmodan. Think of Li Ming. Asmodan, 10 seconds on Globe. 8 seconds for an Arcane Orb, I do believe, off the top of my head. Think of what that feels like when you're just trying to turn in those coins. But every 3 seconds, sandblast. It gets really wearing, and it's pretty frustrating to deal with.
Yep.
But put her in a lane. Actually, switch that just like Nova. Put her in a lane. She's by herself in that lane. That's a bad time.
Zero push power.
Exactly.
Absolutely zero. We were lamenting the loss of Kael'thas's push power after they changed up Living Bomb, and it doesn't spread between anything other than heroes now. Kael'thas looks like Johanna now compared to Chromie in terms of lane clear.
And in all honesty, your Dragon's Breath is going to be your most reliable hit because it's unseen by the enemy team. Whereas the Sandblast has to be shot from out of lane, which means you have to be roaming, and you don't always get to do that. So using your Dragon's Breath to clear a lane is usually a bad idea. You're 14-second cooldown at that point, unless you have Talons, which come at level 6.
Yeah, it's strange to have a mage that is so dependent on, I think, being paired up with someone in a lane. Now, we typically do pair our mages up because a lot of them are made of paper, and Li Ming is really the only mage that has any type of escape mechanism right out the gate. But Chromie seems to be, of the four now, the most dependent on having to have a friend in the lane so that she can roam. She can spend her whole time just kind of hiding in the bushes as far away as possible so the enemies don't see the attacks coming.
And that's okay. I love that design philosophy. I think it's nice to keep our mega lane clears on our specialist and have, our artillery characters move away from those things. Look at Skeleton King on release. A warrior that just had amazing lane clear. Now, we still have Johanna. Sure, her win rate isn't through the roof, but she's still just an amazing character. And it opens up the possibilities for her to solo those lanes so other characters can do different combinations. Kael'thas, Jaina, Li Ming, they're stuck in a lane by themselves. Maybe a bit of a bummer, but not to the degree that you will fall behind in XP with Chromie, who really does need to keep moving, just like Nova. So, let's talk about what people need to do to become good Chromies here. And it's a little sad, it's a little disappointing to be this hardwired into a combo. It's kind of that Kerrigan problem. You don't like it? Tough. You can try to do interesting builds. You can try to make something happen with Bronze Talons, do some sort of wacky time trap build. But really, honestly, because you can't lane clear at all, you are missing out on an XP contribution for your team. So your main contribution, just like Nova, is going to be deleting that one character using Temporal Loop, followed by the Dragon's Breath as it flies in the air, Sandblast. And that's the combo you delete someone with. And there's no wiggle room.
That's very nice. I absolutely underestimated Temporal Loop right out the gate. And I believe you said you did as well when this is all off air. We were playing a game earlier today.
Yeah, I thought Slowing Sands would be awesome. It costs as much mana as she regenerates over time. So you're slowly going to run out, but really you can keep this thing going forever. But there's a couple things on this tooltip that aren't clear. It has a range. And if you walk outside of that range, which is actually kind of small for something that persists forever, it's going to go away. If you're about a full screen's worth away from your slowing sands, they will disappear. If you die, they disappear. If you take it down, you then have your 5-second cooldown and then you have to wait to relocate it. So on some objective maps, you may be able to increase your contribution to maybe a melee heavy team by going slowing sands. But again, really, we just need you to kill one person.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where temporal loop comes in. And it doesn't even need to be Chromie. They did such a good job on the visuals of temporal loop that you can see when it's cast. You can see where the enemy that it was cast on is about to be ported back to, and you can see the little clock ticking down. So your whole team kind of like immediately, without having ever seen this ability before, they're in on it. And it's kind of this playmaker. It's this shot caller without saying a word.
I agree. That's actually a great point. The clock is extremely well designed, and another reason why the ability is so powerful, whereas maybe Bone Prison, while extremely visual, doesn't give us any indication of its duration. Actually, I think there's a little bar that moves, but it's no way as visual as this clock.
No, it is. No, it is not. I've seen enough Bone Prisons at this point, though, that I can more or less, count it out in my head, but...
Exactly.
I love this on temporal loop. An ultimate should have a visual like this, and I think it should have these type of visual cues that make it that easy for your teammates to make a play based off of the 70-second cooldown ability you just decided to use.
And that's an important ability because that is your cocoon sort of style thing. That is your time to shine, and if you don't pull it off, if you're off by a second, combo ruin, particularly against someone like Tracer or anyone who can do any sort of movement speed, short range, teleport, dash. And there's a different time duration for Time Trap, which you may stasis someone inside, but really the best I've seen it used is to watch out for ganks. You're going to be in a lane for a little bit, maybe you need to cover it, put that Time Trap in the nearby bush where you would most likely be ganked through to give you a little bit of sight. Or drop it under your feet if you're up against something like Illidan, Greymane, so that when they dive for you, at least they'll be stuck in there for, 2 seconds. It doesn't feel very long when you have no movement speed abilities.
That's another. I really like that actually about it. You're saying it almost sounds like when you're talking about using Time Trap for sight within a bush, it's like, it's not really doing what it said. But I love that. I love being able to have more sight. I love being able to drop something that can let me peer around a corner, and that's what Time Trap lets you do. And you know what? If someone moves through there, they're trapped.
And that is a nice delay, but the sight on it is more like an Abathur mine. And you're going to find that if they don't trigger it, you'll get that fleeting glimpse of them before they're on top of you.
That is true. But it is better than nothing.
Absolutely.
Which, so I don't know. I dig it. Overall, I have to say I really like Chromie. So far, we always pull from Hotslogs because it's the best statistics that we can look at. Usually, my opinion of a hero is kind of in line with how well they are or are not doing on the win rate on Hotslogs. But Chromie, I really like her, and that's why I'm surprised to see her at such a low win rate.
And it's XP. And if you abandon your lane, that's XP wasted. You fall behind in levels. And any burst assassin has always had trouble from behind. You take that arcane orb to the face at 2 levels down from them, and you're like, well, no big deal.
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever.
So, I don't know. I will say she feels a bit clunky, that the delays on both of her main attacks on Q and W seem, I don't know, just like a hair too long on how long it takes to get these things off, especially because of the distance that you're working with. And I know they've got to be working on a razor's edge with the balance of this hero because of the range on her abilities. But there's something about having to fire from so far away where it's almost like it fails because it's too good kind of thing. It's like, well, my distance is so great, I really have to lead with this. So, and on top of having a delay, it's very hard. It's very hard to land. It's hard to get used to having to lead with such a great amount of distance, having to compensate so much.
And Leeming spoiled us because that orb gets longer the farther it goes. It does more damage, so there's some interesting interactions on the ability. But really, we talked big about Leeming when she came out. she's pretty easy to play.
Yeah, especially now with Chromie. I've been comparing Chromie to Tyrande a lot because Sandblast Dragon's Breath reminds me a lot of Lunar Flare, and Sandblast reminds me a lot of Sentinel. But Sentinel has a global range, no delay. The second you hit W, your Sentinel flies off in whatever direction you were just aiming, and it travels the entire map until it hits a target, unless you spec into specific talents. So, while Sandblast, we're all sitting here going, oh my gosh, I can't believe the range on this thing. I'm sitting here as a Tyrande fan going, do you guys forget about Tyrande? Literally the whole map.
I do think Chromie needs to be added to the Nova rule, the Murky, Cho'Gall, Abathur kind of pool.
Oh, so so she should be added to that list of heroes in quick match where they're not going to allow too many of them on the same team so that you're not body light.
Right, not a good week to do it, of course, because let's not increase these Chromie queues any more than we have to. But she is extremely body light. And in fact, you and I have been having great success this week playing our Frost Bros, doing the Arthas Anub'arak thing, because it creates such a great front line. Arthas, slow, methodical, moving across the map, this great tank at the moment. And Anub'arak has all these movement speed abilities, can tank as well, but if Chromie gets in trouble in the back, I can dive back there. If something happens in the front, I can stun for Chromie. Yeah. And that's been working out great. So if you just want to win this week, go body heavy in.
Yeah, absolutely. Just build around Chromie if you're playing quick match. And Hero League, I don't know what's going on. I've been too afraid to go in there because it's a new hero week. But
it's madness. I can tell you that much. Check out this week's solo Q&A. Actually, you joined me for a little bit, and we played some of our new heroes this week.
We played 3 games.
Yeah.
Our first game was a bit rough.
But that was still good. I mean, Arthas, Anub'arak, they still shined despite our roughness there.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
The enemy team just had the better Chromie in that case. So if you're making a comp with Chromie, it's got to be loud. It's got to be thick, because she will be nowhere. She's going to be that Nova.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I don't even want like a Lunar on my team.
Yep. I'm with you there, man. So any closing thoughts on Chromie?
I can't hammer this hard enough. You got to get the combo down. You got to do the temporal loop. For now, we may discover things down the road. You may have a perfect executioner team. There's always caveats. But if you want to be into Chromie, it's tough. I want to be creative, but you just got to man up and make it serious.
I want to see that Dragon's Breath land immediately after they port back, and then I want a beautiful Sandblast lined up right after that.
Yeah, Sandblast is so cool. The quest adds so much damage to it. The spec you can make over time is awesome, but that's not your job. It's too random. You're spamming those things. Those are hopeful shots that can help out in a team fight. Go with reliable, deep breathing at level 1. Do a Dragon's Breath build. Get overdrive. Get good at that. You're going to need it because that's your job. And at level 20, regardless of what spec you do, probably just go past and future me, because it increases your chances to spam and hit.
I like it. I like it a lot. I will also say, and I'm sure multiple people will tweet at me saying I'm crazy, I really like Bronze Talons. I feel like it has been the butt of many jokes this week, but we are still seeing a ton of Illidan's, and those Illidan's are out for Chromie blood. They will be in your auto attack range. Bronze Talons is kind of cool.
It's a decent way to make up for a lack of objective clear that you might have on your team.
Yeah.
But it's still not as powerful as your main darn role.
Right. Absolutely. Well, let's dive into the rest of the patch, because there was a lot of stuff to discuss. As is typical with these very large patches, we are going to divide these into what we consider buffs overall, nerfs overall, and reworks overall. So let's get into it. Let's start with buffs. And just to remind everyone at home, when we talk on the show Into the Nexus, this is the show, for the most part, for your average player of Heroes of the Storm. We're talking to you if you are a solo queue or if you are a weekend warrior. So we are talking about your solo queue meta, not the pro meta, which we'll get into very quickly, especially with the changes to a lot of the talents you could take that were affected by regen globes.
Right, let's not sit around today saying, but if you're farming 2 lanes, because when does that happen in a solo queue environment? Every once in a while, everyone's like, hey, Asmodan, you want to farm 2 lanes? And you're like, yeah, I always did. Hey, Murky, you want to not make this objective today? Well, yeah, thank you.
Awesome.
I'd
wonderful.
love to skip the objective.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, exactly. So let's get into it. First hero we have under the buff column is Kerrigan. She saw cooldown reductions on both of her ultimates, and I am seeing just a lot more Kerrigan, but B, a lot more Ultralisk.
Sadly for Kerrigan players, there was a momentary buff that lasted about 48 hours, where Battle Momentum, or her new version of it, Bladed Momentum, check out last episode, by the way, if you want to hear us go on and on about Battle Momentum, could be comboed with some other odd abilities to just give her ridiculous regen. That's been taken away. Her splash damage no longer causes Battle Momentum to just move out of control.
Yeah. I immediately saw the chat room like, oh, wait, she's... Okay, you guys got it.
Yep.
Raynor is up next. So Raynor was interesting. And this is where we get into our caveats and why we're explaining to you guys that we're mostly talking about this for an average player. But we consider Raynor a buff here. Berserk was removed. And yes, technically the changes to Seasoned Marksman, if you were insane at farming regen globes, do make Raynor weaker. But the new quest system that has been put in place for Seasoned Marksman, I think is quite easy to achieve and overall better for the average player of this game. Anything else? Oh, also the change to Executioner, really good for Jimmy.
Yeah, he puts out a lot of pain when you can get those slows out with your team. And no need for Berserk, because when you complete your quest, you get a mini little one.
Yeah. Not we were singing the praises on Brawl with the Blues yesterday of just Executioner builds in general, because there are so many Chromies out there right now taking the slowing ultimate. So wait a few seconds. Well, I guess not. It's not both a level 10. Never mind. But pay attention to what Chromie takes. If Chromie takes the slow, it may be worth going Executioner.
I think Executioner is just looking fantastic right now. It's not as insane as we might have hoped. 30% isn't that big of an increase. But the synergy it allows, and the fact that you are now paying attention to those slows and really wailing on the character that has them, could just be kind of a side effect that's making these characters better.
Yep. Also, a lot of Arthas is out there right now, and a lot of slowing going on from Arthas. So
absolutely.
Enjoy that as well. Let's talk about Zeratul. So Regen Master got buffed, so he gets an additional 500 health when he completes the quest on Regen Master, which is huge for Zeratul.
And he got the new Seasoned Marksman, so if you want to do a Shadow Assault build, you can pop 30% additional attack speed on top of that.
Yep. It's kind of gross, actually, Zeratul. I haven't had a chance really to get back in and into my Zeratul play, but he's very high on my list of heroes that were changed in this patch that I want to try next.
Probably Zeratul, of all of our characters with the Regen Master change, lost the most. He's roaming. He had the most opportunities to get the most regen orbs, and showing up every time you pop out with full health was powerful because people would run away. Whereas now you might show up with 500 additional health, but you're at half health since your regeneration was cut. And people will turn around and wail on you instead of being fearful. Right. Still a buff, though.
Yeah, and also the Seasoned Marksman change. So if you were not a god farmer before, this new version of Seasoned Marksman will be good for you on Zeratul. Let's talk about one of my all-time favorite heroes, Brightwing. So Polymorph was the only ability touched on Brightwing. And if you read it in order of bullet points, you may go, oh man, the duration was cut. But the thing you need to remember is the duration was cut on just about every stun, polymorph, route in the game, for the most part, by 0.25 seconds. And polymorph was part of this kind of sweeping change. So it is very much in line with all of the other CC in the game at the moment. But to offset that 0.25 loss on the duration, they buffed it. They buffed the slow that Polymorph does. They buffed the cooldown by shaving some time off of it. And the mana cost was reduced as well. I'm ecstatic about Polymorph now, personally. I'm having a great time with it.
She's performed well for you.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Oh, man. Got to take her out for a spin in Brawl with the Blues yesterday. That was great. When I was like, I can support guys, and they're like, okay, Garrett, you can support. I'm like, yay! Right wing.
You do a good job.
I love Brightwing, man. I'm so glad she's good again. She's back. She's back. Have you any other thoughts on Brightwing?
I don't think the duration on Polymorph really matters too much because it's about the interrupt.
It is about the interrupt.
It's about your plans being ruined because you are now a sheep after you did a backflip on Illidan.
Oh, jeez. You're right. That's absolutely the reason I take it. The only point I think where the duration kind of hurts is if you take Criterize at level 16 because your Polymorph makes the enemy vulnerable, so that's a slight decrease in that vulnerability, but not the most popular talent right now. I love it, but Bouncy Dust is still, according to Hotslogs, the most picked talent at level 16. So, but still, don't let that duration on Polymorph deter you. Depending on your comp, Criterize can be wonderful. All of a sudden, Polymorph again becomes that shot call without having to say a word.
They also added an effect now where you can see your hardened focus, the one that gives you increased regeneration on your basic abilities when you're above 80%. So it's really easy to keep track of, and that's on the same level.
Yeah, absolutely. So try out Brightwing if you haven't, or if you've been gone for Brightwing for a while. I highly recommend her. Let's talk about Lily. So she has straight up cleanse now, Kyle. In a day and age where generic talents are an endangered species in this game, someone had a generic talent added on.
And people aren't too pleased. I'm calling this a buff because it allows Lily to counter certain abilities, and I know exactly what I'm going to cleanse when I get it. Otherwise, I'll pick something else that'll make me generally more powerful. If there's a bunch of random, like, Arthas slows and, like, Diablo pushes and stuff like that, I'll probably skip cleanse. But if there's a Bone Prison or a Mosh Pit, it's cleanse time at level 7, which is really big. Herbal Cleanse, which many Lily mains have been arguing about this week as a better version of cleanse, is at 16. And getting to 16 with a Mosh Pit in the game can be very hard.
Yeah. So, again, this is one of those, I feel like this will be a divisive call by our part, but I am all about cleanse. I did not like Herbal Cleanse. I did not like the fact that it would go, because of the nature of the way her heal works, going to the lowest health ally, you didn't have enough control over it. And yeah, you can spam it, and there's not a huge break between them, but dude, when you need a cleanse, you need a cleanse, and it needs to be on point.
And it needs to be on point. And I don't have the time to maybe walk that extra couple steps to make sure that my perfect little, cup throwing range lands on the right person, even if they're not the lowest health character. And sometimes that lowest health character is me. And on other supports, I might hang out with really low health and still support my front line.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
So I think this is a great change, but I understand Herbal Cleanse was very cool.
Yeah, as a as a fan of playing support, I see this as a step in the direction of making Lily a more legitimate support hero.
And she is. Pros are crazy. I love Blind. I love Lily.
Yeah, I do too. You could follow every episode of Into the Nexus and see the gradual progression, the breaking down of my incredibly salty opinion of this hero to this point where I love Lily. I absolutely love playing her, and I'm even more excited now that she has cleanse. Speaking of generic healing, Kyle, let's talk about Uther.
He's all right.
I'm back on the Uther train, just for the record.
I think there are good comps for Uther out there. They're not as obvious as they used to be back when we had fewer characters. And now there's that whole question of, is a stim better here, or do I need that divine shield to protect people? But Uther did lose a little bit of stun duration. Same decrease as everybody else, but he got cooldown reduction, mana reduction, and much like Brightwing's Polymorph, that's what you need. Yeah. Just that little patois, get out of my face.
Yep. And again, was loving it on stream with everyone. Again, yesterday when I got to play Uther, I felt like my stun was always up. It was always ready.
Yeah.
I like the change. I like, you see this, there's this kind of this seesaw, this balancing act where the duration of all of these stuns has been cut, but on a lot of the heroes, there were other buffs made to their stun abilities to try and compensate for that. And it's exactly what's happening here with Uther. It's what we talked about just 2 heroes ago with Brightwing's Polymorph.
And my favorite thing about this is stun stacking. It doesn't have to be such a careful activity. I don't have to wait around for the Kael'thas gravity lapse on its cooldown and make sure that my ability's on cooldown. I can stun what I want with Uther and still have it ready to go when we need to stack.
Yep.
I prefer this version.
I like it too. I kind of I like where this overall, again, we've only had 2 days to sit with it, but overall, my gut reaction is I really like this patch. So, Anub'arak. I'm just going to, Kyle, what do you think?
I think he's great. I think you have a lot of power with the level 1 dampened magic. If you aren't fulfilling that role, though, you end up going with something like Regeneration Master, I think you get a little off target. And the Beetle build doesn't feel as good as it once did all the way back last year. Your build without going an anti-magic build just doesn't really come together too well. And the CC you provide, it's kind of short, but there's enough of it that you really mess up those backliners. I love Anub'arak versus Chromie right now. She has to work so hard to hit you in the first place, and then when it does land, boom, 50% reduced damage.
Yeah.
Against Kael'thas, maybe not so much. His living bomb lasts longer than the duration of your dampened magic, so that final explosion still hits for full power. But there'll always be that chance where, Kael'thas and all his buddies walk out and just gravity laps and boom, 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 boom. And you know what? That dampened magic lasts a couple seconds. And it's going to absorb all that business, lasting 1.5 seconds. So it's good, and you are just marauding through people.
It's been wonderful watching you. Guys, Kyle has been gleeful this week playing Anub'arak. Just a pig in excrement. So happy.
But you're also my rock, Like, I get to run around and be crazy, but I come home to Daddy Arthas. And you're protecting the line. You're making everything actually work, whereas I'm just the crazy guy with a baseball bat.
But I love that. I love that dynamic because that's the fantasy that I want to like have, man, playing as Arthas with Anub'arak by my side. I want to be that stoic kind of harbinger of death. And it's like, oh God, it's Jason Voorhees. He's not very fast, but when he shows up, you're in trouble. But at the same time, it's like I've got Freddy Krueger who's just showing up in your closet out of nowhere coming after you. It's wonderful.
Exactly. Turning into like centipedes and weird stuff.
Yeah. So
that roach scene, I will never forget. Oh, my goodness.
That's a rough one. That is a rough one. From one of the later dumber movies too.
Yeah, so the movie wasn't good enough to warrant something that horrifying.
No.
It just makes it more twisted.
No, it was not. I don't remember. It was like 5 or 6. There's a lot of those.
I think it was
movies.
Dream Warriors, number 3?
No, because was it? No. Because Dream Warriors is one of the best ones. So
the one where the kid's like a wizard and stuff?
Is that the one with the roach? I haven't watched
Dream
Dream Warriors in a while. I don't know. Well, that is, I don't know. Evil Dead, then Nightmare on Elm Street as favorite horror franchises.
Sure.
So, anyways,
well, but Aliens is an action movie, right?
That's its own thing. Sci-fi horror is kind of its own genre that Alien, I would argue, created.
It's more fun.
Yeah, and terrifying at times, and more serious. But we are getting off track. If you want to hear more about the Anub'arak changes, by the way, make sure you listen to episode 106 from last week, where Kyle and I could not wait to talk about Arthas and Anub'arak because we were just too damn excited. So check that out. Let's talk about Johanna next, who we're also keeping in the buff category because the shield amount on Iron Skin was significantly increased. Apparently, according to the developer comments, and this was something I hadn't even really picked up on, the scaling changes from all the way back in November, which seemed like forever ago, thank you, wedding, brought the power of Iron Skin down below where the developers intended.
Which is madness, but it's kind of like Chen. There are Johannas that are just dying everywhere, and then there's the amazing Johanna, and you don't know quite what they're doing so amazingly, and it is Iron Skin management. And now she has a little bit more beef to that. Plus, Regeneration Master got that buff too, so maybe a little level 1 talent diversity, but I still think Knights Takes Pawn is just going to be better.
It's really good.
She takes the blow on Blessed Momentum, no longer cooling down her ultimates. I think they're situational. They maybe don't get as spammed as often, so I think it's okay. I think we still go with buff on her.
I agree. I think just the update to Iron Skin alone is a great change for Johanna here. Speaking of Johanna, let's talk about her old school counterpart Leoric, who got a health and regen buff across the board. Also, reanimation was brought in line with the updated version of Regen Master.
but he doesn't get bonus health. And this is a buff because it's a flat improvement for him. And we can say like, well, what if I got more than 30 regeneration globes in a game? This isn't a good buff because you get 10 seconds off your respawn time when you complete the quest. That's a bummer. Any ability that affects death, we can talk Tyrael for days, how that's kind of a bummer of a trait. Why do I want this? I shouldn't die in the first place, shouldn't I? Looks a little special. We've seen great comps with him where they've used his death effects, sacrificing him instead of anyone else on the team. But how often does that happen in your home games? How cool are you with a Leoric dying 10 times and no one else died?
That's true. But you know what else is also true? Leoric dies, man. It just happens. It is a fact of Leoric life. Or a fact of Leoric undeath.
And he's scaled by that effect and shows up on the battlefield where he belongs. 10 seconds off that isn't awful, but I wouldn't mind 500 health.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
I think I'd prefer 500 health.
I'm not surprised that Leoric was one that I think was teetering on the edge of us categorizing as either a buff or a nerf. And I also wouldn't be surprised to see this maybe tweaked a little more to make it a bit stronger for Leoric down the road.
No, certainly not a nerf. No way. This is an awesome increase to his health and regeneration, and reanimation is still the best one to go with. It's just a bummer.
Yeah. I'd like to see a little more. I'd like to see Leoric maybe just get a glint of the spotlight he had upon release again.
Just a little bit of lane clear, maybe. Bring it back. Let him have that role again.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think I'm against it. I think killing the minions is fine. I think the issue with him was when he launched, he was just a siege unit. He could just walk through a wall.
Well, look at all the text that's been put on Skeletal Swing. I mean, originally it was just non-structures. I would walk up to walls and I'd have them down before the first objective. It was awesome. And your big ol' swing is the tower, the gate, and the other tower combined.
Yep.
When you pressed up against it. So it was too much. It also released around the time of Infernal Shrines when all the skeletons are up and everyone was still learning. So we were clear in that like mad. Johanna was pulling everything in. Leoric Swing, it's done.
Yep.
Maybe give him that back.
I agree. Let's talk about Rexxar, Hunter-Gatherer. Is very much like all the other regen masters we've seen, and now has a quest. Once you complete that quest, Rexxar, not Misha, gains 600 health. We talked a little bit about this last week. So if you want to hear more, you can listen to that episode. But hey, this is a good change. Misha will now chase into bushes even when sight is lost.
Yes, and for StarCraft fans, maybe this isn't a good change. They would say this is OP, but for people just putting Misha on guys while you're trying to manage Rexxar in the background, this is absolutely a buff and most welcome.
Dear God, no. Rexxar needs this. Rexxar is too hard to play.
Fair enough. And actually, with all these stun reductions, Misha's charge was unchanged.
That's correct. That is very important to note. Almost every stun, CC had its duration cut by a quarter of a second. Nothing changed on Misha's charge. So enjoy that, Rexxar players. And I can't wait to see Cloud9 picking Rexxar again. It's going to be fun. Stitches got bonus health and movement speed increase after completing Hungry for More's quest. Which I haven't seen a ton of Stitches since this change, but I've been taking Death's Advance on Arthas, and I'm all about my tanks moving a little faster.
900 bonus health, and then you get 10% movement speed. Wow.
Yep. That's nice. You know the guy that doesn't really need to chase people down because he has the chain? He can chase you down.
Yeah, well, maybe not chase you down. Maybe he gets in position faster, perhaps. Either way, I think this is a buff to both of his heroics, because either he closes for the Gorge or he lays more poop.
Yes. Lay that poop, Stitches. Lay it like the pseudo raid boss you are. So, final buff we're going to talk about is Tyrael. He got a health and regen buff across the board, similar to Leoric, which I think he desperately needed. And you wanted to talk about Angelic Momentum.
It was removed from his heroics. This is the new version of his battle momentum. His damage since scaling has just been kind of bad. The fact, though, that it augmented his ultimates is a bummer. It's sad to see that gone. Less sanctifications, less judgments per game. But when you think about Tyrael, you have to consider everything that's on his abilities. his Q, Eldrune's Might, deals damage. Then it slows. Then it lets you teleport to it. Then it slows again when you activate the teleport. That is a lot of abilities on one ability. Look at Anub'arak, who can give himself a shield. Well, Righteousness gives you a shield and everyone around you. Smite does damage. That's fine. We have lots of characters that just do damage or something. But no, this gives movement speed to everybody. All of his basic abilities are so powerful. It's just his auto attack damage needs a little oomph. So with the health regeneration, maybe we'll see him be a solo tank again. I doubt it. I still think this is an overall buff for him because the time between all those 100-second, well, 80-second and 70-second, those still aren't insane. I think Tyrael, it will be as good as he was.
Yeah, for all of the vanilla heroes, which we've been talking about, especially in the wake of Arthas and Anub'arak getting some love, which is funny because Anub'arak isn't technically a vanilla hero, but Tyrael seems so unique. And honestly, I think the most forward-thinking of most of the vanilla heroes. He's in a unique spot where he seems almost like a pseudo-support tank.
Right, and I've had that situation where I'm trying to get that character, and Tyrael throws himself in, shields the guy, and they both get out okay. There's a lot of really cool versatility and utility to Tyrael. He just needs that auto attack damage he had before the scaling, and I think we'll be okay. So this is a step in the right direction, perhaps.
Yeah, give him
and
some
I'm going to put it damage.
under
nerf.
I'm okay with him having. I'm okay with him having damage. Do it.
Yeah,
let's do it. I want to see.
We got Sonya.
Yeah, why not? Why not? I think it's okay. Well, let's talk about the nerfs, Kyle. First up is Falstad, and oh man, the forum comments.
A lot has changed. Falstad has been reworked quite a bit. His mage build has been brought back down, but we're in that weird World of Warcraft place where there's always one better build because you're just doing damage. Vala is so unique. We talk about her a lot for talent versatility because you have some pretty obvious choices based on the comp. You can add slows. You can add this Hungering Arrow build. You can deliver all those auto attacks and just wail one dude down if you have enough CC. And there's different situation, but Falstad's always flying. He's always Falstad. And if the wizard build is better, we'll have a wizard Falstad. And if we have an auto attack build that's better, we'll have an auto attack Falstad. I hope this puts him in line so that you can do both at will. Right now, I'm still just seeing Mage Falstad continue to go. And he's fine. He's all right. It's nice as a non-Falstad player to not take a boomerang to the face with that huge range that he once has. That is no longer possible. You can no longer go boomerang with the range. You have to make a choice. Are you an auto attack or are you boomerang?
Yeah, which has a lot of Falstad fans rightfully angered, and then I can understand that. I like playing Falstad, but this was something that I always thought was a little overpowered. It seemed a little insane that you could take an AoE explosion effect plus the massive range increase and really not have to make a decision there. And that's exactly what they've changed here. Is you have to choose which one do you want,
and that's good. You are required to take a survivability pick at level 4. They have removed that possibility of adding that range into both kinds of builds now. And I think that's cool. They moved up static shield. So important to know, if you're fighting Falstads right now, at level 4, he will have some form of either regeneration or shield gain.
Yep.
So don't go ham because he may barely survive.
Right. That is a very important thing to note. Although he lost first aid, correct?
Yeah, he did lose
so that is also important to note because first aid was fantastic for quick match Falstads. But yeah, the static shield, I wouldn't be surprised if you aren't seeing a lot of it in game right now. I know I am. I'm still seeing a lot of Falstads. I think people still enjoy him. It doesn't feel, again, from my anecdotal evidence, that he's been horribly maimed by these changes, but I've seen a ton of static shields picked, and I've definitely fallen into the trap that you're warning everyone about right now, which is, yeah, let's close on that bird. Oh crap, it's level 4. Oh god, where did that shield come from? I can't kill him. I'm dead.
It's bizarre that Falstad never sees bans to me. And just on a personal level, I like to ban him out because the chances of having a bad fall stat on my team seem kind of high, and having an amazing fall stat on the enemy team is very scary. But even in our world, we're still looking at people, Tracer, Li Ming, Illidan. Sure, ban that Illidan, why not? Kael'thas?
I'd rather let the Illidan through and let me take Brightwing, personally.
Fair enough.
Or Uther, for that matter. You know, just get a Shrink Ray on there, smack him on the head with a Hammer of Justice. Anyways, so yeah, those are the kind of big changes to False Dead. He was reworked across the board. We're not going to sit here and read all of them, but that's the big thing to note is you cannot get Boomerang and the range increase anymore. You have to decide between the two. Let's talk about Kael'thas, to which I just say, leave Sun King's Fury alone. Just leave it alone, Kyle.
Seems odd. They keep targeting this as the problem with with Kael'thas.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it technically is the thing that's kind of putting him over the top. Is that just a little extra bit of burst from your auto attack?
And it is auto attack damage, so it does avoid some of those problems you might have against an Anub'arak. You're not setting off his shield in that way. So it's a good choice in that situation.
Right, and that is a good thing, an important thing to note. And actually, I didn't even think about that until just now, because they're clearly trying to make a handful of tanks specifically tailored for fighting against mages. And if one of the most popular mages out there, most popular build, is built around empowering your auto attack and not your ability power, it's kind of hard to play against them.
But honestly, Kael'thas is banned out not because of Sun King's Fury to me, just because Living Bombs changed the game. And we all have to pay attention to this thing we don't want to pay attention to. And
Gravity Lapse.
That too. It's a good stun.
Yeah, okay, I'm going to repeat myself one more time. Again, shot calling without having to say anything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, that guy's up in the air. Let's kill him. So, by the way, folks, target the polymorph more. Target it more. I'm doing it as a shot
It's small. It's hard, right?
Yeah.
That's why Bone Prison's so great. Because it's big, it's loud.
It's incredibly loud. But yeah, you see a little critter moving around. Kill it. I know it goes against your instincts. You love little cute things. You don't want to hit them with your car. This is the opposite.
Show those cute things. How dare you have big eyes?
Turn into that squirrel.
Mm-hmm.
In the video game, not in real life. I love squirrels.
Yeah, well, squirrels are pretty cute.
They're really cool. A lot of them around here, by the way. I don't know if you have squirrels in Seattle. Do you?
Oh, we got tons of squirrels.
Okay, cool.
We've named several because we're lame like that.
I find it really weird when I go places and they don't have squirrels. Anyways, Gazlo. So he got a stun duration reduction and nothing to offset it.
He got 10% ability damage on the stun.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. But Gazlo was a hero who wasn't incredibly strong or dangerous before, and he got a stun reduction. So even though, again, we kind of talked about how don't be too down on these stun duration reductions because it kind of happened to almost everyone across the board, Gazlo seems to be the one that has been affected by it the most.
Now, his slight increase in damage, 10% is a bit of a bummer, but his other talents, if you go with the build, do augment by percent the damage done. So they need to be careful as how much they actually scale up Explodium Charge. But that stun duration change messes with his main Gravity Bomb combo, which we're already waiting on the cooldown for in the first place. Granted, you have Scrap and everything else to kind of power it along. But this is kind of like it's a game-winning ability. It's your mosh pit, and to have time taken off of that, this is going to be a nerf.
Yep. It's your maw, unless you take Nidus. I don't know who would do that.
No one would misclick that in a million years.
No, never. Brawl with the Blues yesterday, folks. Let's talk about Zool. Bone Prison Man finally got touched.
It's been a while. They were patient.
It has. So it got a duration reduction. But in addition to that, the amplified damage talent got a duration reduction. That does make sense, though. You would assume that a talent like amplified damage that is directly tied to the duration of an ability like Bone Prison would last the same amount of time as the Bone Prison.
Yep, it's just a nerf to Zool. There's nothing fancy about it. But on the plus side, he did have his Executioner increase just along with everyone else, and he is an Executioner machine.
Yep.
You've got your Bone Prison. You can spec, have your Scythe slow by 40%. You've got Skeletal Mages that can put out a 30% slow. There are so many good reasons. Plus, I mean, Curse Strike is auto attack based, so you're just reaping those lanes at level 16. So again, maybe not the best power spike.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. But by the way, he's fine. Totally. Actually, I think every one we've talked about that we would consider in the nerf column, I think overall is fine. I don't think Kael'thas is going anywhere. I think Falstad's okay. I think if you were good at Falstad before, you will be good at Falstad now. Mostly because I agree with you. I think it's because the mage build is still the proper build, and that's how people have been playing him.
Well, and in my opinion, I think you should go auto attack because, well, maybe not anymore actually, because you can complete the quest easier.
Right. Yeah.
But in the past, you just farmed any lane that wasn't being covered, and you got seasoned marksman stacks.
Yeah. Anyway, moving on. Rhaegar, Stormcaller talent. It's a lot harder to get your full mana discount now. And there was no buff to Earthbind Totem to offset the duration reduction on that slow.
He also lost a half second on his level 16 slow. That one that everyone takes, the 90% slow, that hurts a lot.
Yeah.
And that's gone now, too, and that hurts him quite a bit. But these aren't crazy. Rhaegar will continue to be awesome. The initial snag, the shock value of that 90% slow, I think was why you took it in the first place. So I've still enjoyed seeing it go out. I still like the talent pick at 16.
I dig it too. I don't think there's anything really wrong with it. A lot of Rhaegars, myself included, are still taking Feral Heart at level 4, so I don't think mana regeneration is necessarily his issue. So I think the change to Stormcaller is okay, although you'd have to make... Although, never mind, because they're on the same level. Recant that statement.
No, just go Feral Heart.
Yeah, just go Feral Heart. Shield build is getting dinged again.
Maybe Johanna. Because she pulls everyone to her. But really, Feral Heart it.
It's pretty great. It's pretty damn great. Chen, which you and I kind of went back and forth. Is Chen a buff? Is Chen a nerf? We overall, the two of us, really liked the change to the regen globe talents and the quest systems that have been added to all of them. But all of you out there, man, even our listeners who tend to be more on the they err on the positive side, I feel like we do. Someone out there's gonna cut together all of the times I ragingly complained about the fact that we still didn't have season 1. But by popular vote, man, not a lot of people super angry about the regen globe change on Chen.
Which is so strange to me because you still get the bonus 500 health, and that sounds awesome. I mean, how many matches did you really, Chen, get over 30 regen globes? Maybe most. I'm not a Chen player.
Yeah.
And also, a lot of this anger was directed towards the PTR before they came out with all those little buffs later on last week.
Right.
So maybe Chen has backed out a little bit. I've seen him this week. He looks great on the field.
I agree. I overall like him, but just because of what we've heard from all of our fellow Chen players, it's all right, we'll throw this in the nerf column to satiate your rage. So, finally is Diablo, and Kyle, I'm just going to let you take this away because you've been having a rough time. You've been trying to convince yourself that you're still in love with Diablo, but I don't think you still are.
Yeah, we did a game together on solo Q&A, and you were Brightwing, and You're just a fantastic pixie duster.
Oh, thank you, sir.
You were just, every time I was closing in, you threw it on me. It allowed me to make the good angles I need now to slam someone into a wall, complete that stun, get the overpower, and then with an interesting level 16 talent, push them back yet again. Without you, though, Diablo's not doing so well.
Yeah, it seems rough. So explain to everyone, or did we go over did we talk about Shadow Charge last week? I honestly cannot remember.
A little bit. We talked about the days change from the stun. Really, what's happening here is that if you are ahead, particularly when you hit 16 and you can take that rather cool ability, it's Domination, where you get basically an instant charge after you overpower, so you can charge in, grab someone, charge out, and carry them back to your team. If you're not ahead, you're going to die a lot. And it's tough. You can't disengage an enemy team. You can't just push someone, give them some distance between you and them, and walk out with your team. You are along for the ride. So yes, being ahead on Diablo feels as awesome as it always has, because I always closed the distance and got that overpower and that body block to follow. From behind, though, he's a pile of health. He's always been the gank warrior. There are other more resilient characters than him, Johanna, Muradin, who have either regeneration, bonus health abilities, or an actual negating shield for them. And we're going to see Diablo go down in win rate.
So you are talking about domination as the talent that allows you to shadow charge in, overpower them, and then shadow charge them in the direction of your team, correct?
Yep.
So do you think, so that you don't have to depend on someone like me on Brightwing giving you pixie dust to give you a movement speed, would it make you happy to see Rampage put on a different talent level than domination so that you can be the master of your own domain and give yourself a movement speed increase?
Getting the good angle doesn't really have to do much with my own walking movement speed. I have to mount up. And mounting, that's why Diablo has himself a unique mount animation. He runs on all fours. Not because it looks pretty, and it does. I love it. And if you're doing anything else, you're doing it wrong. Just throwing it out there. I don't want to see Diablo on a Wonder Billy, please. He's a very serious character. He, in my opinion, and for the longest time I've been kind of saying this thing, he needs something on his mount. He needs a unique mount. Maybe it's when you're mounted, you're kind of like Rhaegar for a couple hits. I understand. I don't want Rhaegar Diablo running around unstoppable all the time and getting great angles 24/7. But you have to close. You have to get a gank. You have to be a little surprising. And if that can get you the early game level lead, if those ganks lead to you being more powerful than the enemy team, then Shadow Charge is working as intended. It feels great. But if you're behind, as with any tank, but particularly Diablo now, one of your abilities has just kind of become useless.
Fair enough. I agree with you, by the way.
And battle momentum. We're being nice and sane. I know this is me. I've been, trumpeting that horn of battle momentum on Diablo for a long, long time now. And it's sad to see it go from the heroic.
Yeah, it is. I don't know what the future holds for Diablo. I think he needs some work.
And they said that this was to fix a error in the game. They just kept trying to make this animation work, the push into the push back with the mini stun. But something was going on. We saw that a lot across many different patches. Oh, well, here comes Diablo's bug again. Oh, okay, it's okay. Nope, we're pushing in random directions again. That was painful. So if that's gone forever, cool. Let's fix this new version then.
Yep, I agree. Well, let's finish this up with the characters who have been just pretty much reworked. It's hard to really say if it's nerf, if it's buff. It's kind of all over the place. Let's start with Li Ming, because Tal Rasha's elements got quite the change. It can now scale up to 20% ability power, which is a buff, but it starts at 5%, and it accrues 5% at a time, up to a maximum of 20% bonus, as long as you don't chain the same ability twice.
Right. So if you teleport, magic missile, arcane orb, disintegrate, that disintegrates your most powerful ability at 20%.
Yep.
And 5% down from each of those. Then you teleport again, chain is broken, you're on your new version of Tal Rasha's.
Yep.
So kind of a weird interaction. Text isn't very clear there.
No, it is not. No, it is not at all. I was all over Red trying to understand this thing.
But I like it. It's very flavorful, and the idea that I can go all these sort of builds, and maybe I'll use Calamity last because I want a Calamity build, that's cool.
It is. But I'm not used to this kind of depth on a talent in the game.
And it's that, definitely. It's StarCraft analogy. I don't know if these are useful anymore. Let's do Hearthstone.
Okay.
Let's do Hearthstone.
All right.
You are an amazing Deathwing player. Every time you play Deathwing, you win the game. How often do you actually get to play Deathwing?
I love the idea that you are better at playing a card than someone else.
Perhaps, right? I mean, your whole strategy is based around that. It's a late game strategy. So it's going to take Li Ming's a lot of work to get this good at Tal Rasha's because it always happens in the late game, which always doesn't happen.
That's correct.
Or sometimes doesn't always happen.
Yep. The other really important thing to note here is the change to temporal flux. Because if you didn't read the patch notes, you may be thinking to yourself, well, change to Tal Rasha's elements, I don't really care. I always take temporal flux. Well, it's been changed. It now gradually slows enemies caught in it up to a max of 60%. It was previously a flat 40%. So, yes, it's a buff, but before it wasn't a gradual slow.
And when I use Temporal Flux, I'm usually using it for the benefit of my team because they're out of my range. And I'm saying, ooh, look at this juicy target, 60% slow.
You're literally pointing at them with a giant pink kill beam.
It's our bone prison, right? Who do you want to kill, Li Ming? That guy.
Him right there. Look, I'm pointing and killing him simultaneously, but help me kill him faster.
Ooh, Li Ming needs like a college professor skin.
Ooh. Oh, that'd be great. It's just a laser pointer.
Yeah.
If you look over here at Exhibit A, they're now dead. You're welcome.
Or our galaxy, seen from the stars.
Let's talk about Arthas. How's that feeling, Garrett? Well, Garrett, I'm glad you asked. Arthas is feeling fantastic. I think he has build diversity, which I'm stoked about. I highly recommend everyone tune in to Brawl with the Blues from yesterday. Go to twitch.tv/BlizzHeroes. Watch the whole thing. I don't have the timestamp, but at some point I asked, hey, McIntyre, how are you feeling about Arthas? And he gave this beautiful, succinct answer about all the different ways you built him depending on what is happening to you. But for the most part, it's all about Death Coil. We talked a lot about it again last episode. You can listen to 106 to hear our thoughts on Arthas overall in greater detail. But the Death Coil build is real, it is powerful, and it feels great.
It does, and it's a lot of fun to play. But it's not a flat buff. It's here in rework because it has a delay. That Death Coil has to fly at the target and bounce back to you, and it's based on that damage when you do this build. So,
and I can't tell you how many times already I have been near death, gone to disengage, thrown out the Death Coil because I know it'll heal me, but I'm retreating, so I'm actually increasing the amount of time that it's taking that bounce to return, and I die before it hits me.
Yep, or we got to watch out for Brightwing Pixie Dust, which can negate ability damage to some degree in the late game. Don't use it against an Anub'arak. There's a lot of oddities there. If you're able to auto-attack all the time, there's a really cool Frozen Tempest Rune Tap build sitting in here waiting for you.
I just like Frostmourne Hungers overall. Honestly, I love the level 1 Frostmourne Hungers talent with the quest now. It is so easy to complete and it feels great. You get this like Super Smash Brothers style text that pops up. It's like Frostmourne powers up. I really like it.
There's a lot to like about him.
There is.
I think I would honestly throw this in buff immediately if they just took away the stop you have when you cast Death Coil.
Yeah, it's rough.
It's clunky. Why would I stop entirely to cast the spell? There's so many over-the-shoulder abilities in this game where you get to keep on. Tyrande, Lunar Flare, you don't stop.
We've been talking about it all damn show. Pixie Dust. It used to stop you, and they changed it.
It'd be a great quality of life improvement for him. Yes, it would have greatly upped his escape, which isn't much, but if you could get your heal off and keep moving, that would be huge.
I think he needs that change, to be completely honest. But overall, I think Arthas feeling wonderful. I'm keeping up in damage with our assassins. At the same time,
do the big old rainbow over it all. Talent diversity now available.
Yeah, exactly, absolutely. If I had one criticism, it's his level 20. There are strong abilities in there. Again, you can listen to McIntyre yesterday, kind of sing their praises. But there's, none of them. I don't know. Maybe it's just me complaining about talent diversity. Maybe it's like all four are good in different scenarios, and I'm never sure which one I should take. But overall, I'm sad to lose Hardened Shield. Anti-Magic Shell, while good, has a very short duration. You have to time it perfectly, and it's very punishing if you misuse it.
60-second cooldown, yeah, for 3 seconds of ability and vulnerability.
Yeah, just ability. Auto attack damage, and you're not negating any of it. If that Kael'thas went Sun King's Fury, you're taking the brunt of it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my only gripe in it, and I want to stress that it is a minor one. Arthas, I'm back in love, man. Honeymoon restarted.
Oh, it has the flavor, right? He's stomping around. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, it's great. Muradin, just an obscene amount of new talents and changes to existing talents. You got the stun duration reduced. Healing on stone form was reduced. But overall, again, kind of want to talk about the talent diversity. How you feeling about Muradin?
I think there are other options available now, and previously we always did the exact same thing. Reverberation, you take Avatar, you get that stone form, it was so powerful. Pretty big nerf to that, 10% off the whole healing, and an additional 2 seconds to the time the heal runs. So there's a good chance that you might be able to get that Muradin when you may have not. But I really like his new quest. I really like his new level 1 quest. It increases the damage and decreases the mana cost, right? Yeah, it reduces the mana cost, and he has the quest, every time it hits a hero, increase the damage by 5%. Which means that with that reduced mana cost, you can now actually go without running out of mana on Muradin, his version of Battle Momentum, which is at 0.75, so it's a biggin.
Yeah.
Plus, healing static, the one where you do your thunderclap and you heal per hero you hit, went from 1.5% to a 5% heal, maximum health. So if you're in Avatar form, that is a big heal.
Yes, it is. It absolutely is.
So lots of steps back. Yes, they did nerf the majority of the talents that were part of that every single time build.
Yeah,
which gave him talent diversity. A bit of a bummer, but a rework nonetheless.
I am, however, not surprised by any of this. It's been a Muradin domination. He's been one of the go-to tanks for a very long time now, and I think he needed to be reined in a bit.
And we want to see other tanks shine. Muradin's win rate isn't fantastic on hot slogs, but Muradin is a go-to tank in professional play.
Yes, he is. Finally, let's talk about Zagara. There were other heroes that had changes, but this is going to be the final one. We're going to talk about, she got her own version of Battle Momentum, Swarm Momentum, so your basic attacks are now reducing your basic ability cooldowns by 3/4 of a second instead of half a second. Like all of the others, there's no more reduction on your heroics or your traits, so sad for MAW players. But you were telling me earlier about a massive jump in the use of Swarm Momentum and Nidus.
The whole problem with the old Battle Momentum for Zagara was that you simply couldn't afford it. Her spells are all decently expensive. If you had the self-control, maybe you could just do nothing but Hydras for the rest of the game and win it for yourself. But now that Nidus Network heals you and regenerates your mana at 7.8% per second while you're inside of it, you have the mana to do that many Hydras. And it's been painful. Her global presence is real.
Yeah. I accidentally took it yesterday, and you know what? It worked out.
It was okay.
It wasn't too bad. Wasn't too bad.
And we're not seeing any reduction to the cooldown on Devouring Maw, which I'd like to see. I'd like to see that move down to 100 seconds. It's at 120 right now.
Yeah.
Without Battle Momentum to make up for that, that's a little rough.
It seems like they're forcing Nidus a little too much to me.
Maybe.
But,
And Nidus has some creep to it, so it encourages, outside the box, not all creep talents in the early game. So I like it. I like these changes. It is a rework. We'll see how it works out for her.
I'm excited for the future. I'm hoping for a Maw tweak. But that's going to do it for our wrap-up of this patch. Let's wrap the show up with some Dustin Browder tweets.
Right. I could be wrong.
Oh, man. Dustin Browder has had a lot to say this week because, well, I think we've had a lot to say at him.
Yes. He's been on the warpath on Twitter.
Yep.
And that's to say that he's being aggressively nice to everybody.
Yep. I got the hint, the slightest hint, that he was a little irritated by everyone shooting Hot Slog's stats to him as if they're scripture.
Yes.
When he was like, they don't have the full picture.
Well, and talk to a statistician and they'll tell you don't even use anything that doesn't have every person on the world accounted for in it.
That is true, but
basing any information about 3,000 games is bad, but it's what we have.
It is what we have. And Dustin, if you don't want us talking about it, show us the actual stats.
Yeah, put it in the game.
Put it in the game. At the very least, I would love to see a monthly dump on the website A post every month that shows us the statistics from Blizzard internally.
I just want it in game personally for me. I want to see, because I still have Haunted Mines when I check my profile. I can still see that was my lowest win rate map.
That's a good
and
point.
That's silly.
That is a very good point. But that is what Hot Logs is wonderful at, which is keeping track of your own personal stats.
Yes.
Because if you keep up with it, it can be a perfect system for you and you alone.
And who knows, the best Chromies in the world may not be running Hot Slogs, but there's a good chance the other 9 people are. At least one of them is.
Yes, absolutely. So, anyway, doesn't matter. According to Mr. Browder's Garden Terror's auto attack, 3-shotting Chromie is intended. So stop thinking it is not.
It's good.
Why are you this close to the Garden Terror is the question I pose to the Chromies out there.
Your range is superior. You shouldn't be there. It's like Nova. Did you get the kill? Well, you messed up. You deserve to die.
Yep, absolutely. More StarCraft heroes are on the way. Surprising no one. Why was this question asked?
He did say that there is always going to be a heavier weight put on World of Warcraft because it simply just has more.
I agree. And the diversity. I mean, you can only have so many people in Marine suits. We already have 2, and I think it's a bit confusing.
Yeah,
Sorry, 3. 3 with Morales. But Morales, I think, is unique enough.
Sure. And we lost... Hammer became a character that wasn't part of the canon simply because he didn't want another Marine suit character in the game.
Agreed. And I'm happy about that. Also, for the love of God, where is my Tank Girl Sergeant Hammer skin? I'm waiting for it. I want the little umbrella and lawn chair on the back of my tank. That'll be wonderful.
Yeah.
Please and thank you. Quick Match does not try to make mirror matchups, despite what some theorists have thought.
It was a lot of tweets at him today about that. And as he mentioned, the meta. And people experiment in Quick Match. So when that sweet, sweet game happens over the weekend with Rexar, there's going to be Rexars on both sides. And then there's going to be a Chromie on both sides. And there's going to be Novas on both sides right now because Novas want to kill Chromies. And there's a Tracer because she's against Chromie. And, well, we have mirror matchups all week.
Yeah, absolutely. All Dustin Browder had to say on the subject of level 20 Grandmaster skins would be very cool, like, exclamation point.
That's a lot of work.
That it, like, what do? Just bolt more spikes, more armor onto whoever?
Yeah, like it's not even a different skin. It's just bigger spikes. They go a little bit farther.
I like the idea of, like, say on Arthas' master skin, just adding horns to his horns.
The idea has been presented to just give one more tint to the master skin, which I like.
Yeah. When inquired about it, Dustin Browder said, no, Uther Shield will not lose its self-cast ability. I think that's some people a little salty about Rhaegar's ancestral healing, but I think that's fine.
Yeah, Morales that can't heal herself with her own spell. She has her trait, but just people learning the game. There's a little inconsistency in our supports, but I think that's the flavor.
I think that's by design. I don't think it's inconsistent. I think that's game design, personally. I mean, I get it, but I don't know about that. Anyways, let's talk about trailers. Trailers are back, but still won't come out for all heroes.
So don't be seduced by this recent wave of trailers. We'll still miss some.
Yeah, I really liked the Chromie trailer a lot.
Yeah, it was fun.
Thought it was great. Although, again, gave away too much about her ability and how to counter her.
That's not bad. We actually saw like actual health bars too on the Lost Vikings there. So they're getting a little more transparent about that. Whereas it used to be just Tracer running around killing everybody.
Yep.
And Arthas.
All right. You want to hear me get annoyed at a Dustin Browder tweet?
Ooh.
All right. Jonathan Rebar asked, is the Hot Slogs win rate for Chromie consistent with your data? Any discussion on what potential issues/solutions might be? To which Dustin Browder replied, going to watch and wait. Team is studying her pretty intensely. Cool. Good to know. You didn't answer the question. You don't get to complain about Hot Slogs stats if you're not going to give us stats.
That is a little secrety, and that's weird.
That bothers me.
Right. Well, we're selling heroes. And
Right.
that's why it's probably not coming out. Then that's not a tinfoil hat thing. It's just the character has to sell.
I agree with you, and I hate it. Anyways.
I agree.
Anyways, I've been too. I feel like I've been too happy this whole episode. So that one, that particular one was just like, come on.
Fair enough.
Balance Team is thinking about how to help ban diversity. I have no idea. I have no suggestions whatsoever on how to help ban diversity.
I welcome this from the bottom of my heart. Kyle,
I've got one for you. Daily quests. 200 gold to ban Rexar.
Oh, ban a warrior quest. I like it.
We could theme it off of the wild card picks from esport events. So after DreamHack, Rexar could be the ban that gives you some type of bonus. That's a terrible idea. Do not do that.
You'd have to be the banner, and oh my goodness, that'd be dirty.
Yeah, no, thank you. I'm not into that. Leaving Hero League Draft does not affect your MMR, only your rank.
Which is right, but weird.
It is strange. I feel you would have to leave a lot of games for this, I think, to cause the issue that I'm taking issue with, which is, well, like, if you left enough games and you're level 40, but your MMR is that of like a rank 10 plus, that means the system doesn't necessarily work and the rank is not important. But
particularly in rank 1, right, where they tries to match all rank 1s together.
Right, but in that case, I mean, that again, I think I'm being self-aware of the fact that I believe that is an extreme example that is incredibly unlikely.
No, the real problem with this particular statement and this fact is that the illusion is shattered even further. That rank is a note of skill.
Right. Could be wrong.
Right.
Finally, apparently Dustin Browder mains Lunara. He's level 15 and he uses the pink master skin.
Good to know.
That makes me so happy that I forgive you, Dustin Browder, for being clearly irritated at Hotslog stats, which I cannot blame him for.
No.
But at the same time, not giving us stats when asked. But hey, he's got a job to do. Can't knock him for that.
Exactly.
I think that brings us pretty much to the end of this very dense episode. I feel we had a good time with it. We talked about aliens in there. We had a lot of fun with burrito jokes.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have to ride my mic button too hard with burps.
That's good. That's good.
So I hope everyone enjoyed that. Really, kind of in summation, I'm very excited about this patch. I'm super curious to see how the tank meta shakes out. What our tank meta looks like in a week or two.
Also, we had the patch today that changed out all the bugs and fixed them, and that's great. But it has reset our stats. So yet again, Hotslogs is back to square one. So we'll report next week as to what this actually all meant.
Yep.
And I hope it means a whole lot of successful tanks and more diversity in the game. And new tanks mean new backlines, new supports. And this game could be very interesting. But it's so fascinating to just see how slow the bans move. Because we're still all banning Tracer.
Yep.
And I'm okay with that, but it's weird.
It is very strange. I personally don't like playing against her.
That's the thing. She changes the space of the game.
Yeah, I like banning her out too. But I still kind of, it's that, hey, first pick. Do you want to take Tracer? Yes, cool. Let's not ban her. No, you don't? Okay, ban her. Just get rid of her. I don't want to deal with that blip on my radar.
Yep.
Don't have a radar in this game. Or yeah, you do. Never mind.
Oh, yeah, mini-map.
Blip on the mini-map. There you go. Exactly.
Ooh, that'd be an interesting idea. I mean, we have Chromie now that gets her level, her abilities a level early. What if you had a character whose trait messed with the minimap?
Oh my god, that would be insane.
Not always reveal, but I guess it wouldn't really matter.
You could argue that a Nova does that. If you see a decoy, it does pop up on the minimap.
That's true.
So, kind of have that in a way. Anyways, let's thank our patrons over at patreon.com/ITN for directly supporting our show. We don't have ads at the top of the show anymore other than thanking our patrons for supporting us. So if you like Into the Nexus, if you dig what Kyle and myself are putting down over here and you want to support us, head on over to patreon.com/ITN and subscribe today. On this episode, let's thank Kofnick, Jake Martinez, Zig, Creeping Bam, Ghost Dunk, Byron Sacri, Matt G, a.k.a. Leaners, and Mox235. Thank you guys so much for supporting us. really does help us a lot because, well, this is our job now.
Yes, and condensing this amount of information is a week-long task, I can tell you. So thank you so much for your support and making this show be better every time.
Yeah, absolutely. Heck, I would argue that Brawl with the Blues yesterday made it a little easier for me. At the end, I was kind of laughing because Trick was like, "Oh, guys, thank you so much for taking time out of your day." I'm like, "Dude, you made my job tomorrow so much easier because you forced me to set aside a big block of time to play on this new patch."
There you go.
So, and again, huge thanks to the Heroes team for having us on because that was really special.
It was very kind and also extremely useful in all honesty. Like my Twitch did very well yesterday, and that was amazing.
Yeah, we're not in the esports landscape. We're not casters. We're not players. It's very rare to see, just strictly podcasters in this space get to participate in these types of events. So it meant the world to us. It was some of the most fun I've ever had playing this game. And now, Kyle, I get to say I got to support McIntyre, which also feels really good. So thanks to the Heroes team for allowing me to live out that little fantasy.
I agree.
It's a good time. It's a good time. So thanks again, patrons. If you would like to support us in a free way, you can drop us a 5-star review on iTunes if you like the show. It helps the show out quite a bit. This week we have one new review from My Name is John Smith, who said, "This show is outstanding like a cow in a field." Which I have never heard before, and I love, and I will be stealing. So thank you for that. My name is John Smith. It sounds like something that's been around forever, and I just somehow missed. But
you get it in your joke dad book.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have a kid, and they just say, "Here you are, sir." They hand the wife the baby. They hand you your book of jokes.
Yeah, here we go. I'm just going to take it here, take the elastic off my moleskin and just write it in here. Oh, God, what was that? That was a that was a business card from BlizzCon. That's what that was. Anyways, thanks again. Into the Nexus is produced by amove.tv. You can head on over there for tons of other podcasts. Also check out youtube.com/amovetv and subscribe. Thanks to our Patreon producers, Declan H and Cheesy Bob. Thank you guys very much. You can get coffee mugs and pint glasses with the Into the Nexus logo on it over at bit.ly/amovestore. That is made by John. He is a listener to the show. So go support him and support the show in the process. Catch us live Thursday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern on twitch.tv/amovetv, and you can catch the mobile live stream on alphageekradio.com. Follow us on Twitter at ITNcast, and big fat thanks to BrianGriffithMusic.com for our intro and outro music. That's more or less it. But Kyle, where can folks find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Kyle Ferguson. Certainly look up that Brawl with the Blues from yesterday. It was awesome. But you can also check out episode 19 of the Learn to Play show with both Garrett and myself. The new meta, that is up at youtube.com/c/Kyle Ferguson. And it was a delight for you to join me there. It was great getting to have a conversation, run down these, as well with the Arthas rework episode, the PTR, and of course yesterday's solo Q&A, where it was Hero League time, and it was madness. But Greymane. Yeah, Greymane.
I had a fantastic blast.
Ooh, I like that.
Just made it up.
Well, you can have your cow in a field, and I'll take your Fantastiblast.
All right, wonderful. It sounds like a Slurpee or something.
It does kind of have that corporate zing to it.
Yep.
Almost soulless, like the Minions.
Now I want a Slurpee because I can't remember the last time I had one. Anywho, you can find me around the interwebs on Twitter at Garrett Art. I can be found talking Hearthstone on The Angry Chicken, and I just put out a new episode of my solo podcast, The Angry Nerd, which you can find on amove.tv/angrynerd. And that's a lot of fun. I'm glad to be back doing that show. Go check that out. Let's thank our sponsors. Just because we aren't running ads at the top of the show anymore doesn't mean we don't have codes to give you to get awesome stuff. Use the code ITN at checkout and get a free solid-state drive added onto your Doghouse Systems gaming rig over at doghousesystems.com. That same code, ITN, will get you 30% off and free shipping off of your entire order over at tweakedaudio.com. That's going to do it for this episode. It's a big new patch. It's a brave new world out there in the Nexus. Get out there, conquer your friends, and as always, good luck and have fun.
Take care.